Welcome to Warblog. Today we're going to look at the heights of Khab and Shaaf. I'm not really sure that it should be called that because it really seems to be more like harassing this Boqa-Hazm road. And so Ansar Allah, the Houthis, threatened the Boqa-Hazm road along the Wadi Salba and Sahla, along with Wadi Salba and Sahla. Wadi Salba is there, I think, and Sahla is there. So it's an easy game, which is why I've chosen it. It's got a few things to maybe point out. For example, we've got contours. So we have, I haven't got a way of identifying, you've got to sort of figure it out, but this is level, and then this is one up. These hills are level 10. These hills here, which you can see, are level, no, let's start again. The desert is as it should be, level 0. The hills are as they should be, level 0. So there's not an increase in the height. So what you could assume is that these desert areas are incrementing 2 hills, but they're sort of at the same height. These hills are obviously more hilly, but they're sort of at the same height. You know, it could be that you're entering a more hilly area. So they're at 0. That's how it's working at the moment anyway. I'm still trying to get my head around it. But here, this desert is higher. So that's at level 10. That's at level 10, but this is lower. So that's at level minus 10. So you'll be coming up there. So it'll be up to there, down to there, etc. So you go into the hills, but you go up to level 10 there. There's level 10, you can just about sort of see that there. But there's a level 20 there. And this is level 30. I put this in deliberately to sort of see how this works. So you get a subtle contour change if you would need it, but you're not going to. It's more aesthetic, really, at this stage at least. So we'll play this. Now, obviously, we're just trying to take these places. Now, the setup is, this was really more just sort of a placeholder. I don't know why I've got 2 there, but obviously we've got 2 there, so we don't really have a lot of units, which is sort of the point. So if you sort of consider it, we're in the hills. So we're, because we're the first player, and so we've got to come down somehow and contest these objectives. Basically, we've got to take these 2 locations and all this road, which is sort of what they've been doing. So these are sort of like insurgents in the hills, so to speak, and this is their sort of natural, almost natural boundary. They sort of, I'm not sure what it is on the map, on the original source, but it's something like that. But they're coming in to attack here, and then they're counter-attacking sort of like this. Presumably because we need to leave something in there to protect this sort of area like that. And if we move these out, for example, to attack that, these units will then come in here and attack that, in theory, or etc. Now, the thing to bear in mind is that when you start looking at the units, it's deliberately quite sparse, and that's the reason for that is so that you're in a position where you're sort of forced to contemplate what you actually do, because you can't do everything. It's not sort of like a massive front line. So what on the Hadi side, basically we've obviously got thought I reloaded that. So on the Hadi side, we've got an infantry unit and an infantry unit, but nothing else. So what we've got along the road is a mechanised unit that can patrol the road, a mechanised unit there that can patrol the road with some offensive capability, and a motorised unit. So they've got to sort of respond to anything that Ansar Allah throws at them. Now, you can, if you're feeling confident, then move these infantry units into sort of offensive, on offensive operations, say into here, but you might not want to do that. So you've really not got enough to do everything in any regards whatsoever. So you could use these down here, but these motorised and mechanised units are not really going to be able to go into the hills that readily. I mean, nothing's going to be able to go into the hills that readily. So that's sort of the situation, really. So that's the situation from the Hadi side. So, we're really just sort of responding. We don't really have the opportunity to do anything, but we're just trying to defend these objectives on this road. And so you might then sort of say, well, actually, it's more a case of considering what happens if they attack. So we can do that. So we're playing, perspective of the Hadi side right at this moment. Let's reload this. If, for example, these two units come down here to take that, what we've got the opportunity to do is to, at the very least, we might want to leave this one down here, is to bring this mechanised unit, this motorised unit, and this infantry unit into play to face them off. So we've got more units, and obviously they can hit, but they're quite easy to defend. Now, the one thing I did actually consider, I didn't actually do this, was reducing them down to 1, 1, 3, because I think 1, 2, 3 is actually quite powerful. And I think that's going to become a little more apparent as I consider this, because they're only really going to get 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1 odds, whereas ideally we'd like to be getting 3 to 1, 6 to 1 odds, because these are not heavy forces. You know what, I'm going to actually do that now, because it was something I planned to do and I just completely forgot, so 1 minute. Okay, so I've done that. We'll have to go back, and hopefully the screenshot will still be the same. The only reason I introduced 1, 2, 3 units is so that the irregulars have a much better defensive position. So it's more reflective maybe on the inability of the other party to carry out offensive actions as opposed to their increased ability to defend. But in this instance, I think this is better because they've still got the same offensive capability, but they're going to be pushed back, and that's, I think, fair reflection of the situation. So we sort of identified that as sort of, well, we're obviously going to have to respond. So that's the importance, to some extent, that's the importance of this road. So what you could say is, well, we could cut that road by sitting there or there, and if we were to sit there, for example, if we were to sit here, we would have a zone of control there, there, and there, which would mean that any road unit wouldn't be able to actually go through this. So this unit would actually have to stop there. So similarly, if we were here, we'd have a zone of control there. Now we don't have enough units to put a unit there and there, but similarly we could put a unit there and block those two road units to sort of stop that ease of movement of forces in that direction. But even so, this is still quite powerful, and that's a sort of a fairly powerful hex defensive wise. It's a village and they're entrenched. So, but we've also got this unit, so we can, as the Hadi forces, we can probably bring 3 units to bear, and possibly 4. Now I think you've got to sort of play it sensibly, because we could otherwise bring 5 and then we'd have nothing across this whole front, and then these units would then be able to just sort of pour in this way. So we do have to sort of somehow defend the integrity of this. So now we focused on that area there, but we've also got this area here. So what we could do similarly is do a similar sort of pattern of our activity. We'd use these 2 units to take out these, and then maybe we could position this unit. Maybe there's not a good position because it only cuts off 1 hex. That's the ideal position, but this is a good one as well. But maybe they could come this way and into there, as opposed to going through the hills. That's a rather long way, but this is more dangerous. So we could similarly put some pressure on that, but it sort of depends on what responds where. So we could take another option to actually say, well, we're not going to go for these towns. We're going to move in and take this road. Now, we could probably take that quite quickly, but they've got to move out and defend that road. So depending on what they do, if they were to sort of move this unit down there to attack, that would mean it would be slightly further away, but it's still difficult. So there's not really a huge scope for trying to sort of outmaneuver these forces, but we could try, go for some of these secondary objectives in the first instance. Possibly with multiple units. So we could bring this unit down here, for example, and have 2 units in that hex on that road, taking it quicker, but also making it a lot harder, because they go from a 3-to-1 down to a 1-to-1, which is not good. So they would need more than 1 unit. So they would then have to commit, maybe this unit and this unit into taking that, which would then leave these units in a position to, say, do something here that they can't reinforce so readily. So the thing is, the point of this scenario to some extent, and the way I've designed it, is that it's not easy, and it's not possible. There's no easy win. There's no sort of, I'm going to just bring my Panzer Corps in through here and pummel these guys. You have to sort of, I think, have a sort of, some kind of strategy and plan, and that is responsive, that's going to sort of give you the option to respond to what the other player does, because essentially what we're looking at here is, as I say, what I consider to be, a chess game, in the sense that I can't see more than 3 turns ahead. I'm not very good at chess. I always say that. Maybe I am, but I don't think I am, because the thing is, I think the battle in chess is to actually contemplate 3 or 4 moves ahead, and the chess computers can contemplate like 10 moves ahead. Well, the thing to do that, the permutations become so vast, and I'm sure that chess players don't think of all the permutations, they just think of the more probable permutations resulting from the development of the strategy that they're implementing, but they're still going 10 turns ahead with those strategies, whilst I can only ever really go 2 turns, possibly 3 turns. And I think that there's similar situation here, because we are planning for something that's going to happen on turn 4, which we can't comprehend. So we're hoping that the turn 4 position will give us an opportunity that's not present at this particular moment. But even so, it is still sort of, I don't see that really happening. So it's sort of like, so you could take another strategy that would maybe be more realistic, and this is to some extent possibly something that you could maybe say as commentary is more realistic, because this sort of situation has been going on for months. They've been manoeuvring and posturing and feigning here and there, looking for that opportunity, and that's what we're doing. So we could because he's a bit of an outlier, we could do something with him that will maybe change something, maybe put him there. And that could be all we do. Because then what we want to do is see whether or not this unit comes out. Because if he were to come 1, 2, 3, possibly there, with the intention maybe of attacking. Now we're in the hills, so it's not going to be easy. It'll probably be only a 1-to-1, maybe even a 1-to-2, so he probably couldn't do anything. But if he did move there, then we would actually have the opportunity, obviously, to then move here. So we're playing for that opportunity, but we can move that there, and then maybe the following turn what we could do is we could move him there, and then we can maybe move him somehow to there. So by turn 3 or 4 we've actually got him there, and these units might be sort of here, and he might be there, and he might be there. So we've got a sort of, a similar situation, a similar spread, but with maybe something a little tighter. Alternatively, we could be in a very different situation where we've got this unit here, let's say, and this unit here, and this unit here. So we've got our spread there, waiting to somehow pounce on this front, leaving this slightly open with this guy here and this guy here. So we've got a slightly different front, but this would be leaving this a little more open, maybe across here, because obviously that would be a sort of more open area, with the option maybe for these guys to somehow come through here. And if they did that, then we would obviously have the benefit and the opportunity to sort of come through here. But all this is sort of, you don't need me to start explaining the opportunities, because that's what your mind is for. That's what you're thinking yourself as a player, as a person, even watching this video. You're thinking, well, how would I do it? And that's the whole idea. And I think that the thing is, there's lots of different ways to approach it, and you could end up with a conclusion that it's not possible. But that's the sort of situation that you've got. You've got an impossible situation, because otherwise they would have done it months ago. And they're looking for that opportunity, but you can then sort of see and maybe get an idea of the issues that are at stake. But again, it's not a simulation in the the infinite degree, because the actual main considerations could be something completely different. It could be the political will, it could be their supplies, it could be the overall grand strategy. There might not be anything to do with where these units are. They might be called off the board to a grand offensive, and similarly these units would be pulled off the board to that same grand offensive, leaving only 2 units here. So these things would be sort of controlled externally. There could be truces, there could be exchanges. I don't know why there would be exchanges, but what I'm thinking of, there could be some sort of interaction between militia units. They could be changing allegiances, because they're not exclusively Hadi and Houthi. A lot of these are sort of probably could go either way, as the situation in the Aden sort of made apparent a few months ago, when the other sort of element of the Hadi forces essentially rebelled, etc., etc. So what I'm saying is there could be lots of other considerations that would actually have a greater sway on this. For example, there could be the intervention suddenly of Saudi air power, or it could be that the Houthis gain sort of drone support from Iran, and there's some sort of change. So we haven't factored any of that in. What we're doing is just playing this as it is. So I don't know really. I guess I should just give it a go, really. And I think what I'd like to do is this. So that's my move, and I've really just pulled the rabbit out there. I mean, there isn't any whole overall strategy behind that other than one element which I'll explain. What was I trying to do? Essentially, so obviously we've got a bit of a gap there, but I don't think that they're really going to be in a position to try and maneuver through that. There's too much of a gap, too much space, so we're okay with that. I put him there specifically because it puts me, it keeps me north. So I'm not committing that south in any regards. But what I am doing is I'm consolidating these units here with the intention of attacking that unit. So my strategy is to actually attack a unit and hopefully do some damage to it. Now obviously I've got to get there. So that's the move. And then so what we've got to do then is say, well, okay, well that's the move. So what is the Houthi player going to do? The Hadi player. So you can sort of say, well, obviously I know what I'm planning, but we can probably see that maybe that is what's happening, but we don't know. Now at the moment we can then say, well, okay, for example, well, this unit can attack next turn. But there's no threat really from here. This unit can attack there next turn. So we've got these two potential attacks, but these units can't do anything. I mean, they can get there and there or there, but basically, you know, they're not going to be anywhere outside of these hexes next turn. I mean, maybe they can go this way. But, you know, they're not going to be in a position to attack anything. So attack-wise, nothing's going to happen. We've got this unit, which could probably get to there next turn, threatening there, which would then push him a turn away from this hex. So we've got a threat up there, so we can't necessarily lose things, but we've got this here. So we've got to say, well, what are the threats? And you know, at the moment we do have next turn that we could be there, there, there. So we still got this consolidation possibility there, which would then the following turn, 1, 2, 1, 2, you know, allow a 3 hex front around that. So this could be a feigned. So, you know, the situation is sort of uncertain, really. Now, so we've got to really consider that this could be attacked, but because we're in a village and we're dug in, it's not going to be anything more than the 1-to-1. But the 1-to-1s are still lucky shots. That's what irregulars do. So, but we've got this unit down here, and I think this is not so much the ace, but this is the sort of the balancing factor, really. You know, that being, what do we do with that unit? And he's quite quick, so let's suppose he can get 6 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be a zone of control. So we could get there, and then we could attack that unit. Now, you know, that would be possibly a 3-to-1. Alternatively, we can move him there, and him there, possibly, and attack that unit. Now the odds there are going to be the same. But either way, this guy's going to be left with the mobility to respond. Now this is the harder one to take, I think. The reason being, because he can do whatever damage he wants from there. For this guy to come out and do some damage, he's going to expose himself in one of these hexes, basically in that hex. So to some extent, this is less of a threat, because if he becomes a threat, he becomes vulnerable there, or, you know, wherever else he goes. But this guy can start attacking from this hex. So this is you know, is quite vulnerable. So what we could actually do is we can say this is a threat, and we've got the mobility to sort of consider what we're going to do. Now this is not going to be a threat for a couple of turns, or this, so this is quite safe at this moment, and we've still got control of the road, which is what we're trying to do. So again, taking and putting a zone of control on this road is quite important, especially if you can divide these units and prevent them from being as mobile as they are. So I think the thing that the Hadis are going to do is, if possible, bring him up here and bring him down there and get a 3 hex assault onto this irregular unit. So that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully he can get there. With plenty of movement. Yeah. So he's got depression 1. So he can either not move next turn, or he can move and be slightly under it. So now we don't really have the movement. We can't. He could possibly move in and continue that attack, but he's not, and he'll be uphill as well. So there's another factor for you. But these two can't move, so I think we're going to just stay there. However, if he's got one movement, it might be useful for him to move onto that hex, A, to protect it, and B, to be a little further, further off in this direction. He can't really do anything. So that's it. That's the turn. Now, I'm going to leave it at that, because I think I've got things to do, but I think that, that sort of mechanism is key to it all. So we put ourselves at risk. So the thing to do is to try and get into a position where we can, at some point, pounce without them being able to get that sort of 3-to-1. So for example, what we could do next turn, and this is just me thinking aloud, in theory we could move him there, which would put a zone of control there, there and there. Then we could actually start moving to there, and then to there, to there, and then to there, to there, and then to there, meaning that we could get an attack on this without these two units being able to get there quickly, because the road would be blocked from this hill line. But we're 2 turns away on that, so in theory they could sort of go around it, or even attack that unit and then be in a position the second turn to follow through. So again, it's about thinking ahead. But because these units are down here, we could afford to place these units in the open. If they come back, we can push them back. So again, you could probably play a lot of cat and mouse on this. So far, the Hadis have lost one factor. That didn't work well for them, but they could have got an exchange on that, and as irregulars, they wouldn't have been hurt. And that was a big attack. There were 3 companies involved with that. They won't always be able to get that sort of leverage. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully it's given you a taste for strategy in this sort of perspective. I was going to do one of the bigger games. I thought this was a bit of a cop-out, but to be quite honest, I think there's a lot in this. There's a lot sort of potential and consideration and thising and thating. So yeah, I think it's considering it's a small game, it's got a lot in it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.